I know it. That's why I don't typically like to interview people before the show because of that reason.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All
We're
right,
recording.
Here we go.
Casey.
Hey, Chris. How are you doing today?
Good. So, what's top of mind? What's going on?
I think this is exciting, Chris. I love it that I'm actually not the interviewer, but the interviewee. So this is kind of fun.
Does it feel good? Does it feel like...
Does.
Yeah.
It does.
Less pressure, more pressure?
I'd say less pressure, you
Right
know. This is up to you to make the show roll now. And you do a great job at it, by the way.
Thanks.
You've had a lot of great shows. And
I'm genuinely curious. So...
Well, you are, and it's important for the
up.
community, though, too. So, you know, you're talking to a lot of different people that wouldn't normally have their voice heard. That's so important. You know, water issues is going to be a huge one this year, and you talked about that quite a bit. So you talked about the ball fields, whether or not they're going to be sold. I mean, there's a lot of great shows.
It's things I'm interested in.
That's what it's about.
So the first episodes, I would do more. I don't know if I was almost like fishing for credibility. But I was trying to have, you know, Toby on, and
right.
You know, I wanted to have, you know, important conversations, and increasingly it's like, no, I want to talk to people I want to talk to. Not that you're not important, but
thanks, Chris. But to that point, it's one of the reasons why I love doing the radio show is it keeps me informed on a lot of different topics because I have the person in the know come into the studio and share their thoughts. So it's really a fantastic way to keep your fingers in a lot of different topics and areas where you wouldn't be able to do on yourself. So it's a lot of fun.
And in the city, I was having, with winning the seat, I was having these really interesting conversations with people that normally I'm in my little chiropractic bubble doing my business, you know, and all of a sudden I'm sitting down with people and learning so much and having these interesting, it's like, you know what, why we should record this.
Oh, this is fantastic.
You know what I mean? So everybody could hear that same conversation, and then they might vote different.
That's right.
You know, it won't just be the last minute June, July, August ads going up. No, people will be informed. They'll really know depth of issues. And
you know, Chris, the people that want to be informed will listen, and it's very helpful. And I've always looked at it that way as well. It's you want to give them the opportunity to get to know candidates, get to know issues. And those that want to know, they'll tune in and they'll listen, and you're offering them an insight that they wouldn't normally get. So it's exciting, and this is going to be a really exciting election year.
I think you're
for
right.
a lot of different ways or reasons. So
what's your take on that? What do you think? What do you think's coming? My
gut instinct tells me there's going to be some changeovers. I think some incumbents are going to really have their seats challenged, and I can see it coming. There's some great races. There's great candidates that have already, you know, put in their
Mike Circus against
Ed Campy. And Mike Circus, he just put out a Facebook post, and I don't endorse my show. I like to hear everybody's side, but Mike just put out a Facebook post that was so interesting. And what I like about Mike, he's very well thought out, and he's a constitutionalist. And he cares about our tax dollars.
Yeah, he does.
And he backed the county budget into how many residents, and discovered that it's $10 a day for each man, woman, and child that we're paying to live here in Martin County. Now, folks, that's just county taxes. That doesn't include, you know, our car registrations and property taxes or federal taxes. So it's like, that's really shocking. A family of four is paying $40 a day or $280 a week just to live in this county. We're the highest taxed county. And I didn't realize that till Mike had put that out there. So he's definitely a candidate to watch. And he's done his homework and he's studied a lot. So I like him a lot. There's challengers in every race, and I think that there's more that'll be coming up. So I'm excited for this year, and I think this is what it's about. It's about people having a choice, and it's our job to research the candidate and find out who supports our beliefs best.
That's why I appreciate your podcast or radio show.
Radio show. Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few outlets that somebody can come in and communicate their ideas, and you can get a sense. TC Palm will do interviews, but it's more regimented. You know, it'll be like, question, you answer. You can't debate. You can't unpack ideas. But on your show, you do a good job. It's part of why I wanted you on today, so I could glean from you. But you get really into the most important topic. You don't waste time, and you put that person on the spot. and you didn't give me questions ahead of time. Like you did, you do a good job of going right for the marrow of the thing and tell me what you think. And you do it in a way that's, it doesn't feel like threatening at all. It's very nice and sweet, but also tell me what is it?
Right. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I don't ever tell candidates they're right or wrong about their opinion because I want people to decide that.
I feel like I can tell though.
Well,
how you feel.
I think you can, and I've been told that before. I'm like, I try not to.
You do, you do a good job of not. You never verbally say anything.
Right, but sometimes my
expressions. But depending on the sigh after the point, it's like, oof. I don't think Casey liked that one.
I had somebody go, "Oh boy, your face turned red on that one." You know, I'm like, "Oh, I was biting my tongue." So.
But it's true. You don't come across as judging the point. You don't kind of shut down the interview with judgment. You know, you do a good job of it.
No, people need to decide what's best for themselves. And, you know, I that's why I try to encourage most that people will just take that thought. Everybody shouldn't be just going, well, that person said this or said to vote for that, so I'm just going to follow that person. Is that really what's best for yourself? That's what I hope people glean is that you need to decide what is best for yourself. And I think our local political positions are the most important because they really decide how we live our life and our taxes, for example. That's
who can shut down your business. That's right. Who taxes you. That's who can make traffic unbearable. That's who can go bigger than 4 stories. All that stuff.
They can change the look of our county in an instant. So, and they've made our county the highest tax county in the state. And that's something I think is going to be a narrative we're going to hear a lot through this election.
I sort of got this from Sarah Hurd, but also my own thoughts, right, obviously. But there's 3 sort of iconic pillars in Martin County, and I'll say the city of Stewart as well. Taxes, water, growth.
Right.
Okay? Every candidate should have some sense of that, and traffic is sort of the extension, I would say, of growth. But those 3 sort of make up the quality of life for the average resident, right? That's what
it does. Knocking
on doors, the massive bell curve of, you know, you get people on the ends that are super polarized, more like with national issues.
Right.
You know, how do you feel about January 6th? And how do you feel about abortion? You know, these like heavy duty stuff. But the vast majority, 95 percentile of humans care about growth, water, and taxes.
It's what we see every day. We wake up to it and it's in our face every day.
And if you botch one or 2 or all 3 of those, I feel like no matter who you are and what union support you've secured or you know what pond you swim in or who you're friends with, you at least should be at risk of losing your seat.
Right.
And in this current election, it seems like all 3 of those are an issue.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. They definitely are. It breaks my heart as I read through social media, all the locals that have been here for way longer than me, 40, 50 years, and they can't afford to live here anymore.
Yeah.
You know, something's not right.
So let me put you on the spot with that, right? Like you put me on the spot with that when I was on your show. Is Casey, how do you fix this problem?
Affordable housing.
Yeah. Because I won't say anymore, but go.
Yeah, no, it's a really big issue. And I think that our elected officials have missed opportunities to address affordable housing with all the growth that's happened here already. All these approvals of multifamily units, I think that they could have gleaned something with their variances. Let's put a pot together where there's a portion of money put into a pot that is going to go towards affordable housing so that we have a pot of money that can be allocated to a project that must be affordable. But we haven't done that. We don't have that money. But, you know, everybody's like, we don't have money. Well, you do. You just didn't ask for it.
And then so you would say sort of what that Green Mills group wants to do downtown, or, I mean, I guess there's different groups that are trying to do it, but effectively taking land from...
Oh, no, it would still be paid for, but you have these variances that you've done from developers on other developments. You have a pot of money that you're paying a fair market price to whoever owns that property.
But to offset the rent or something. Okay. So far what I've seen that comes up is these groups are looking to take underutilized, they'll call it properties, right? So the one over here is our garage. And we've been talking about moving it over to the water plant.
Yeah.
So it would be essentially vacant, right? But they would say that's underutilized, right? It's not producing tax revenue. So can we just go ahead and put on that 3 acres, 130 apartments? And, basically the government's handing over that land in exchange for those people to have lower rent, which makes me crazy.
Well, no, I don't think the government should be handing over land. That's taxpayers'
They're not
land.
selling it.
Right.
It's still owned by...
It's owned by the taxpayers.
But it would be locked up in a 99-year lease or something. It's effectively tied up now
For 99 years. And you're giving somebody...
Because once you do that, you can't... What commission is going to, at that point, take that away?
You wouldn't be able to.
You can't, right? So even if you're not definitively contractually locked in for more than 100 years, you kind of are, because once that's there, no commission wants 100%. To be the ones that took away affordable housing.
Right.
So it is in perpetuity.
Right.
So it's effectively kind of giving away at least the earning potential of the property to be whatever it could be, or a park or something.
I am not for government in any fashion or form taking over the housing.
Right.
Owning businesses, it drives me crazy how many businesses, especially
the water
through
park
and the restaurants out at the beaches, the golf courses, and the list goes on and on. I mean, I think every time there's an opportunity, that golf course one really bothered me.
Tell me why. Well, what's your...
The rent that they were charging the operator was so astronomically high. I don't know,
Do you know
anybody.
how much it was?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say it was like $40,000 a month. And nobody could operate a business with that type of rent.
Mm-hmm.
But yet the county comes in, they don't have to pay rent. And they only had one bidder on that project. So that should have told you something there. What's wrong that nobody else wants to operate this?
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like it was set up for the county to take it back. I mean, these people almost immediately defaulted on their payments. And
you wonder, is it just ignorance or is it conspiracy?
There's a lot of people that probably say the latter, but
yes.
I don't know. I can't say that, but it's just one of those businesses that I think that the private sector should be running and operating, and I think can do very effectively if the county treats them fairly. And it was a fair bid process. If you only had one person bidding it, you needed to go back to the drawing board and say, what do we have wrong here?
Mm-hmm.
And then
it's a good sign that maybe the thing you're trying to do is not the right thing to do.
And, when they were starting to take it back, I remember one of the county staff saying, well, we got to run it a year to figure out what it's worth. And, I thought, no, you don't. What are you guys doing?
I'm a small government guy, so I think we should just focus on essential services, sewer, making sure the roads are not busted up, trash pickup.
That's
keep it
what
simple,
it should be. That's what it should be.
Pooling resources for community benefit, but not running.
Chris, the more businesses they take out of the private sector's hand, the less private sector, you and I, can pay taxes, have jobs, run businesses. I mean, this should not be ran by government. And in the United States as a whole, it's so sad what's happening to our country as far as, let's take agriculture for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
That's become a huge, huge business. All the little farmers are gone.
Yes.
We've taken the ability for just the common man to generally run a small business and be able to be successful with it anymore. And this is where it's very important.
But if I'm a farmer, right?
Right.
And I'm sitting on 20 acres in Indiantown, and the guy 2 lots down from me, just whatever, I have no idea what that land should cost, if it's $1 million or $500,000, but let's say it's 500, right? And that guy just sold his property for $20 million to some developer, and they got the land use change. What are they doing over there?
Right.
How long is that farmer, right? Because all the farmers are older.
They are.
That seems to be, from what I've seen, just, anecdotally or whatever on the internet. But a lot of them are boomers, and they're not going to live forever. What happens when the kids now inherit the property? Are they going to come farm it? Or, especially in the boom of Florida,
right.
You've got...
Right, and you're talking about redevelopment of the property, and that is something to consider if it's zoned and they can get a zoning change. I mean, again, that's what's legal.
But if you outsource all your farming...
I don't
You know what I mean?
Like,
if you really everybody talks about sustainability.
Right.
But if you can't sustainably produce somewhere close to your population center's food, not to get too tinfoil hat, but it should be something.
It's frightening.
If you're planning out the traffic and the land use for everything else, shouldn't you be thinking about food production?
Sustainability, you should.
I don't know.
No, 100% you should be. And I think with the farms, yes, we can sell some of our farmland, but a lot of them also went into large corporate farms. And I come from the Midwest, so I have
I'd love to hear
a little different perspective there, because
Right.
your 100-acre farms all of a sudden were bought up by one huge farmer, and now he owns thousands of acres himself. So all these little farms, I call them little, they were 100 acres, they're gone. And all those jobs that went with them, and the families, what happened back in the 80s, Chris, is mom or dad would pass away, and the child was taxed out of the land because they were land rich and money poor. They couldn't pay the taxes
That makes sense.
on the land. And so it's all changed over the years. But we're kind of getting off track a little bit, but it's just the fact that I think government helped that with their tax, the way that they charge the taxes on the farmers and their families. But here locally, it's all the land that they own. The city of Stewart, you own where waterfront is. You own the Hudson's on the Hudson's on the river, Sailor's Return, down on the corner of Canner and Monterey. I think that property with the car wash.
It's where I have conflict internally, right? Because my sort of conservative libertarian side would say exactly what you're saying, but I'm also now a part of the home team.
Right.
And the home team wants to offset. If they're doing it right, you're offsetting tax base with bringing in revenue, but that does directly compete with the market.
Yep.
So now potentially every, to get hyper-focused, if you're doing an RFP for a bid for some contract to build a thing, that drives up the price in the marketplace. There's that much less land, like you said, on the river to buy, which drives up the price in the marketplace. So even though the municipality is generating revenue,
that's not what the
what are you
government's
doing to
supposed
the market?
to be doing.
Right,
The
exactly.
government's not
100%.
supposed to be there to try and be a business. That's what the private sector is for. The private sector should be leasing or owning that land out. It's just, where do you draw the line? When is enough for government to use the excuse, well,
so here would be
we're
the
making our own money?
I'll give you the pitch for it. The pitch for it would be, if you don't want to develop as much, right? You should either build lower density, higher end, and or the city does have property to generate revenue, because otherwise you're getting it from sales tax, which if you want to have a smaller population center, you're going to get a much smaller percentage of, like, radically, and ad valorem, so, and then you would want to have a huge CRA, because then you could steal money from the county.
Right.
And
There you go. So
TIF money from the
you got
county.
a plan.
Right. So that would be the pitch for it, is if you do want to have either thick coffers or be able to run a streamlined, this would be my hope, is like a thinner government.
Right.
With less having to build and, go up high.
Absolutely.
You did one of those sighs.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Now I know my tell.
You did it. I know how you feel. I know.
That's so funny. I'll have to watch that. So,
Yep.
all right, Chris has found my tell.
Got you.
Tells and poker.
We should play
too.
poker.
I know.
Yeah.
I have my tells there as well.
But,
it's interesting to talk to you, because you are on both sides of the fence now, because you're an elected official. And I think it's fun to kind of maybe pick your brain a little bit, because I think once you're elected, you do see things differently. You see how municipalities are operating, how the income's brought in, how you make money, how you sustain, and maybe some of the good things that you can do with the money. But you're the kind of guy that says, should we be doing all this?
right.
And that's not what everybody does. I mean, there's some things that I think are wonderful. Parks. I'm totally for government running a park. It's wonderful to have our ball fields for kids. Water. Every day of the week, I will support anything we can to keep our water clean, because that's a life necessity for us.
Yeah, you lose the water, you're done.
Right.
You lose your economy.
Those types of things I absolutely support using our tax dollars for. But, you know, at some point at the end of the day, you have to ask, when's enough enough? And I don't know where all Stewart has spent all of its money. You know,
Most of it's public safety.
Okay.
County and city.
Okay.
So if you look at our pie charts for budget, it's usually going to be police and fire.
And that's important, right?
Up, you know.
That's important. Do you need to have private ownership on businesses to support those? You do.
Like in the city, the city is different than the county, right? Because you have that commercial aspect to the city.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the stats as of today, but when we were going through that zoning in progress, one of the things I was trying to do to understand and learn was
Right.
like, where's the tax money coming from? And so at that time, with the data I was looking at, in the city anyway, half of your tax revenue
Mm-hmm.
in terms of ad valorem came from the commercial properties, which made up like, I'm winging this a little bit, less than 20% of the actual physical property
Okay.
number.
Okay.
So
there, I see what you're saying.
because we have a lot of single family homes, we have a lot of 55 and older, we have a lot of lower end that does not produce, they're homesteaded, it just doesn't produce anything. We had to have a fire assessment. Do you remember this when we did the fire assessment?
I don't remember that.
We needed more money to pay for what we were trying to do with the fire.
Okay.
So instead of increasing millage, it wouldn't produce the money we needed.
Okay.
So we had to do an assessment. We assessed everybody
Okay.
because there was the vast majority of properties it would produce no money because they're so without tax.
Okay.
They don't produce taxes.
And that's actually a really big issue that I think people overlook every time we go to the ballot and they want to add another exemption on for, emergency personnel or veterans or widows or whatever. All these things add up, and it really opened my eye because I had I was on the Florida Trails Greenways Council through the state, and we visited different areas in the state, and one of them was Palatka, very poor area. And they said these exemptions that the state is passing, they're killing us because we have no taxes coming in anymore from property because their property values are so low, and all of a sudden you got 50 or 75,000 exemption, you have no taxes anymore. Area like us, or our average home value is what? I don't even know what it is anymore. 400,000
in the city. And this is 2-year-old data, and it's based on not sales price or like what it's listed for, but the value.
Okay.
So the taxable. The city was like 230.
Okay, that's lower
And
than
then
the county for
the
sure.
county was at least $100,000 higher.
Yeah.
And then Palm City was in the 400s.
Okay.
So the city it's one of the data points I brought up is like the city is a much lower.
It makes a big difference, those exemptions for the city. You're counting on those.
Because I got in a little bit of trouble because I was saying, hey, if we are going to build, stop doing apartment boxes.
Right.
And let's redevelop with similar height, similar density, but you have to understand to offset,
Right.
to allow the people who live here, to offset that, it needs to be higher end with similar height and density. We can't be just trying to build affordable housing, low income stuff, or we're not going to be able to, at some point, the people who live here will not be able to live here in their houses because you're going to have to come in with form-based code and like completely redevelop MLK and turn it into City Place.
Right.
To protect the people who do live here, what does get redeveloped, if you know what I mean?
Right.
There's only so many ways you can squeeze it and for there to be a solution. Like you're saying, if you decrease taxes here and stop this and the state's decreasing our sales tax, and where do you
come up
how
with the
do you
money?
function?
You
Right.
you still have your budget. You need to.
And for me, my sort of guardrails and parameters are height, density, quality of life, traffic, the people who live here being able to continue to live here. We may not be able to create new units for people from Fort Lauderdale to have cheap rent, but at least hedge and protect the single family homes in East Stewart, and that they don't have to leave.
And that's what you're dealing with right now, right, Chris? I mean, the city is
Yeah.
pretty much built out.
Yes and no. So yes, in the sense that we're basically out of empty parcels, but inevitably the next step is what?
Tear it down and
Baptist
rebuild.
Church gets torn down,
Yeah.
torn down and turned into something. Seacoast is going to get torn down and turned into something. Any of our
Right.
larger parcels will be the first. And then just like that new hotel that went in, it went on green
Right.
space, but they'll find some kind of way to pack in something,
Right. Right.
you know. So yes and no.
Yeah. No, you're right about that.
Redevelopment's the next phase, I think, for the city. The county still has space to, you know.
To build and right.
Right.
But even, affordable housing, that's actually a term that just drives me crazy because it's not affordable at all.
No. You can't do rent control in Florida.
No.
You know, the government won't let you do rent control.
No, and I think, I look at where we are right now, especially with the city of Stewart in particular, because the traffic has changed so drastically in the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do? I mean, it's the cat's out of the bag. It really is. I mean, you're
There's
not going
layers
to
to it.
take traffic away now.
You're going to hear that it's Port St. Lucie, which is true.
There's
right?
a lot going on.
Port St. Lucie does 10x the number of applications
Yes.
for new development the county does.
Have you been down Becker Road lately? It's just, oh my goodness.
So that's always going to be an issue. When you're talking about the city specifically, the city is a nexus point where, because of the way the bridges are set up, you
Mhm.
have to come into the city to go north-south, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
but that being said, you can also not make it worse.
Right. Right.
And so in the political environments, there tends to be a lot of blaming and, projecting and pointing to Port St. Lucie as the issue or whoever else and Jupiter. But when we allow land use to be converted to things that are more dense, when we're going 4-story with everything, when we almost did it recently. I'm all for commercial and business, but we were about to allow a parcel to become a restaurant that was going to be completely parking exempt. So it was 130 tables or whatever it is, and it's going to be totally parking exempt. Hold on. Right. Hold on. Because there's this overarching philosophy that it's downtown. You can't overpack it. There'll be a saturation point, but it'll just sort of naturally, organically repel people, but it'll be totally saturated. Well, what about my business? What about when somebody,
that's right.
can't come here to get care?
Right.
I
I
don't want that.
There's a repercussion to everything, you
Right.
know.
So making sure you can park it. I said that last
Yeah.
night at the meeting. If you can't park it, don't approve it at this point, because we see now. It's one thing to anticipate and think maybe there could be parking repercussions, so you're approving these kind of things. It's another thing to now be you're swimming in it. You see, whether it's Port St. Lucie or our fault or whoever, there's an issue here.
There is an issue, and everybody's frustrated with it right now. They truly
So
are.
we really need to be careful with what we do.
And it's hard for me to imagine approving something with no parking.
Right.
Obviously, I didn't listen to the discussion, but the discussion probably was they can park downtown and the tram can take them to the restaurant or what have you. So how many of these parcels do you approve like that?
Right.
And you're right. We're already tight on parking. So,
You
where
can't
do
just
you
look
draw
at
the
it in
line?
a silo, right?
Right. No, you can't. It's an
something I
overall
heard
discussion.
Robin Cartwright say, and it's like that's the truest thing is each one of these projects gets reviewed within a silo, and they'll have a traffic study. But
Right. It's always
if you pay proper money, you could have them say anything.
traffic's. I don't remember the last time traffic was a problem, right?
Right. Somehow it never, no matter what the project is, it just seems like it. I've never seen one of them come back with, we can't park
Can't
it
do it. It's too much traffic.
ever.
Yep.
And that's no way. That's not possible.
Right. I know it.
So either it's a bogus study, not that I want to get sued by anybody, but
Right. But
yeah. So
you
not looking at them
question
in a
it.
silo. Look at it holistically. What's this going to do? How's this going to function when there's a Costco and that hotel's there?
I know.
And the Elizabeth has half of the parking for its
Right.
project, and this thing and that thing.
That's right. You got to look at the whole. I mean,
You can't just keep blaming Port St. Lucie
no.
when you're
No.
shooting yourself in the foot.
No. There's been so many changes here in Stewart, and there's a side to that I've always looked at as well, and that is with a lot of these parcels. But we go to variances, and the parcels are, if they're zoned, as much as we might hate having, a new apartment building or a storage building or whatever it is, if it's zoned for it,
Yep.
I'm a big property rights owner
Of course.
and supporter. But it's when you make variances for the projects. that is, that's the point where you're saying something here was not regulated. It's not approved. So what do we get in return if we even say yes?
Right.
And that just seems to be something that's been just kind of overlooked over the years. And I think it's a missed opportunity for our municipalities and as well as the county. The county has a lot of those projects as well. Look what's going on right now with rural lifestyle and,
What's your take on it?
Kiplinger's Preserve.
I can't believe that got approved.
Kiplinger's?
Yeah, man.
That one was a shock to me as well, but he marketed it.
He cashed in his chips.
Got the support, yes. He got the support, and all of a sudden everybody said it was wonderful. And it was outside the urban service boundary, and huge development. Was it 4,000 homes they want to put in there?
Yeah.
It's a whole
it's a
city in itself.
Yeah,
That's right.
14,000 humans.
And nobody batted an eye on the commission about that except for Sarah Hurd. And at the same time, there was another project, if you remember, I think it was Harmony. They voted down, but they didn't have the public support that.
But the only problem is once you do one of these, right? Now everybody wants. Well, I want mine.
It's Pandora's box.
What about me? Let me have my tradition.
It's Pandora's box.
Yeah. Let me have my Newfield.
Yep.
And so now you're gonna have Newfield in Hope Sound. You'll probably have a Newfield.
Oh, absolutely. And rural lifestyle. You wanted my opinion on that. I heard that. So I was a supporter of rural lifestyle for Becker Grove. The only thing I don't like about it is that it was approved as a comp plan amendment. I wish it was something that they had approved just for that project.
Right.
Because I think it's a wonderful project. I have a differing opinion on that rural lifestyle amendment. I don't think it's all bad because we do need to conserve as much land as we can. And I don't have a huge problem with what they call clustering. So I look at it, there's less roads that are running all over. You have your utilities and your homes all in one area, but the rest of it is green space. And in rural lifestyle, it's 1,000 acres that at least that they have to set aside. And I just think that's absolutely fantastic because even if you look at Western Martin County, all our little parcels of 20 acres, they're small parcels. Maybe they're large to, a half acre, a quarter acre lot that we have in the city, but when you break it down, you still need a lot of roads out there. You got a lot of septic tanks, and it's just spread throughout the entire land. So I don't have a huge problem. There's a lot of studies with clustering. It's just generally better for runoff because it's only in one certain spot instead of spreading it all over, and certainly better for wildlife and that side of it. So I was a supporter of the Becker application for that rural lifestyle. Again, I wish it hadn't been passed through the whole county because I think each project should have been looked at with our western lands, but it's really opened it up now. If you even have a little bit touching the urban service boundary, you can be part of that rural lifestyle amendment if you have enough acreage.
It seems like, as far as I can tell, there's a spectrum of it. And in the old days with Maggie up there, you had, in terms of the development that would come in, one is it kind of repelled a lot of opportunities from coming forward because it just wasn't worth even spending the money to bring that into the commission and try to, so they went to Port St. Lucie, they went to Jupiter. But if you did bring it in and you were going to, have this hashed out, we made sure it had to be perfect. There was a lot of no going on.
Right.
It was a fight. It was a war to get a thing approved, and couldn't be wetland. Every crossing T's, dotting I's, it had to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of drift out of that to where it's not as oppressive to get it approved. It's more neutral, right?
Right.
We'll give you. There's more laxity there. We're not going to ride you as hard. But then you can sort of move into like the other end of the spectrum, which is where I feel we're at now with the pendulum swing, where the developers are. There's a lot of control. The developers are driving the bus effectively, and one way or another, and that looks more like land use changes, moving urban service boundaries, finding a way to make it work. Not only are you
Right.
you're not neutral in property rights, and you know, you're not nowhere close to protecting wetland and trying to fight to hash out development. You're on this other end,
Right.
where we'll figure it out. Let's figure out a way to make it work, so we can hedge against Indiantown taking any more of our chess game, or losing any more ad valorem.
The annexing is starting there now.
So
that's the first project.
It's that kind of a thing now, is with that pressure and people cashing in chips up in Palm City, and all of a sudden we're doing this whole other direction where it's we could how could we turn that into what you want?
So I had Tom Hurley on the show with Becker Holdings, and one thing that he brought up, he's like, I spoke with Maggie back in the 80s when they did the comp plan, and I was concerned about what I could do with my property down the road, and Maggie told me, I know you're going to have to, the zoning's going to have to change on it. It's going to be okay. So then when it came to where he wanted to change it, then the fight ensued. I think one thing that we need to look at, and I'd be curious to get your opinion, Chris. We saw what the Live Local Act did. Tallahassee came in and said, guess what? If commercial property wants to build multifamily, as long as it's affordable, and folks, affordable is not affordable, but a certain percentage of it is affordable, then they don't get to go, or you have no say. They don't have to go to the city to get approval for the project. Mm-hmm. That was one of the arguments for the Rural Lifestyle Amendment. Tallahassee can come down and change our 20-acre zoning to 5 acres or 3 acres, whatever they want. There's a point in time when Tallahassee can supersede our local regulation unless we put it into conservation in perpetuity. So that's where I think the rural lifestyle meant something to me, that we can put vast amounts of land in perpetuity and conservation rather than, and I see it coming with Tallahassee. I do. Martin County is a target. You look north of us, you look south of us. Of course. It's built up everywhere. We're a target.
But I would argue it's why now more than ever you need
to protect it.
You need people with a backbone that are willing to say no, that are willing to fight. And you can't just say, well, Tallahassee, no, this is your home. So one way or another you fight. It may have to be kind of behind the scenes or trying to find a way to make it work when you're getting overtly, I hate to say oppressed, but when you're losing your home rule and ability to do your thing. But that example, when I hear it, sounds to me like, hey, they're going to hit you in the hand with a hammer, so you should do it first to yourself.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it. I look at it, rather than Tallahassee coming in and saying, you've got to rezone that for, let's say, 1 unit for every acre instead of 1 unit for every 20 acres. If we have it protected in conservation, there's going to be 0 units on 1,000 acres. Mm-hmm. That's it depends what we're...
That's a good point.
What we're doing.
Yes.
With the Rural Lifestyle Amendment, that was the portion that I'm in agreement with, because with the Live Local Act, you can fight all you want here locally. It did not matter.
Thankfully, and this will probably get me in trouble with them, but thankfully it was so poorly thought out in terms of the market that it hasn't amounted to much as yet. Because what developer wants to have to make sure that 40% of their project
100%
is capped at a rent based on average median income in an economy where, what bank wants to lend $50 or $100 million for a project where you can't guarantee it doesn't work on a spreadsheet. If it doesn't pencil out,
it doesn't pencil out.
If everybody in the area and the average median income dropped 20%, that destroys that loan from getting paid.
Right.
So how poorly that was thought out by the legislature to virtue signal that they're doing something for affordable housing. All they were trying to do, in my opinion, is green light more development in an economy that's stuttering, and they want to make sure that they're continuing to say, come do more. And it did. It created more buzz. All of a sudden you have developers looking at properties that weren't, I won't name the different groups, or the parcels, but they're looking in the city and they're saying, well, we can do this now. And it's like, no, you can't go to 7.
Did anything come to fruition out of that?
There was a lot of posturing and threatening, right? So I won't give a specific example with the parcel or the group, but one of them was, well, we're within a mile of the hospital, and the hospital is X number of feet, and this bill says we can go. So we could be 7 stories here.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God for Mike Mortel, who said, you're going to have to sue us. It's a nice thing about having a lawyer be your city manager. You're
Right.
going to have to sue me. You will have to kill me. Basically, that
To
I
get
would
your
sign
gut.
off on that and that be my legacy here. I will be crucified. You're going to have to kill me. I'll die
Okay.
on that hill. You know, so there was a lot of that kind of posturing, but
Nothing came to real fruition.
but
though.
ultimately, does a bank want a loan for a project like that? So it was sort of like,
They
hey,
have to see a payback method. If
It-
it doesn't pay back, they're not going to do it.
it was essentially, hey, we want this project and we've been trying to do this thing for the last, 5 years and you've been telling us no. And if you don't let us do it now with SB 102, we'll do one of these projects. And it's like, okay, go ahead.
Try it.
Go for it.
Try it.
Well, no.
Yeah.
That in a nutshell is how it has felt. And
Right.
now, at least in the city, in the new legislative cycle, there's an airport buffer. So if you're within a certain distance of an airport, the SB 102 doesn't apply. So
Okay.
the city, for the vast majority of the city, will be excluded from SB 102.
Okay.
The county's still on the hook for it. But again, with the
That's
market.
because the FAA regulations write about how high buildings can be near an airport runway.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So the county still will have to deal with it. But for the most part, I don't think that.
The city has much to worry about.
But even the county, like I said, who really wants to get on the hook for that? Developers want to build what's most
Yeah.
profitable. Is making 40% of your units with no definitive rent
Right.
price. Does that even make sense?
No.
It's just
No.
a crowbar. You're just
No.
trying to use it to get what you want anyway.
That's right.
And no.
That's right.
But you need commissioners with backbones. You need them to be able to say no. I was on the phone with one developer who will remain unnamed,
Okay.
and he was trying to do this with me. And it's like, no, man.
Yeah.
No.
And who's checking the rents after it's built?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
That's a very valid argument that's out there, and nobody is.
Even on the ones that the city already approved, like Harbor Grove.
They told
we
us-
said that a certain percentage has to be, for affordable.
Mhm.
And before that rule changed that you couldn't do that anymore, we did it. But there's no...
Right.
There,
We don't have an enforcement task force that goes
No.
out and checks rents and makes
Right.
sure. So, it is interesting. So, and the same can be said for the rural lifestyle amendment. That's a lot of land a developer has to give up in perpetuity to conservation. So,
Which is awesome.
Yep, it is. So that's the part I like about it. So, it's interesting. I don't think a lot of them are going to be able to do it now. I think we got the golf course going out there, and that's part of the green space that they have. That golf courses, I don't even know that they really make money anyway, but that's one use that
You must not golf.
not as
You know how expensive it is to
it's
golf?
like it's one of those things that was going away and now it seems to be coming
It's
back.
so expensive to golf.
It is.
Yeah, man. I surf, but
Do you
when I hear
I-
about these prices to go play around at golf, it's like
forget about it?
I come home to my wife like, "You're so lucky."
Go surf for free. Just buy the surfboard.
I've got a $500 surfboard. I'm gone for a couple hours. I come back bronze,
That's right. And more exercise too.
Yes.
It's better
and
fit.
I didn't spend $400 today to golf or
You
whatever. I don't know.
stay at the 19th hole too long, so
And these clubs, these clubs are not cheap to join.
they're not. They're not. It's crazy expensive. So, but they keep coming in, don't they? Which
If you build it.
yeah, if you build it, and we got Michael Jordan building the golf course down off Bridge Road. But I will have a shout out there to Guardians of Martin County where they're purchasing the land along Bridge Road, and which I think is fabulous because we're not. I like this. It's kind of like Walmart. You don't know what's there. It's going to be the trees and natural, just Florida natural native vegetation and whatnot. That's what you're going to see when you're driving along Bridge Road. Behind it will be the development, but
Which I would like to see more of. I think we look to the government to solve too many problems.
I agree.
And, you think of the old days, like when Stewart was just forming and it was all woods here and settlers. The people who lived here, the affluent ones,
Mm-hmm.
were who built the schoolhouse,
Right.
who built this, who built the church,
People get it done. When
Where
they
are
wanna
the
get it done.
local patrons and
Mhm.
people who do care about the
Mhm.
community? Buy land.
That's right.
Buy land. And then donate it to the county. as long as, in perpetuity, it can only be a park or a
Right.
green space.
Right.
It don't.
And while Kiplinger did very good with his property out west, he did donate the park there.
But do it without
Canada.
any expectation of
Right. I know.
a new field.
I know. The new field's huge. It's huge. That one surprises me. It always will, but it is. And it's done. And
Because what happens when you've got 12 or 14,000 people
oh, I know.
and one road going in and out,
It's not even built yet. Just wait. Exactly.
and then because forever the city of Stewart had 16, 17,000 people,
Mhm.
right? Like that's not that far off from 13,
Right.
14, whatever it's going to be. You are effectively putting a city
It is.
on Citrus because you were able to take the density. Like you can't build on that wetland portion, but you were given the density for it to sandwich on top of the buildable portion.
And you were outside the urban service boundary with
Right.
it. It made a special exception for it.
But what does that do to traffic? Because those people
Oh,
they're not going north
no.
to Port St. Lucie. Like if you just look at it on the overhead map, they're not going
No,
north.
no.
So where are they going? They're either going to 95 or they're coming into
That's
Stewart,
right.
Palm City.
Martin Highway's already a nightmare.
Right.
I know they're widening it, but it's already a nightmare. So you're going to be adding on that much traffic.
That's what gets frustrating for me is that kind of a thing.
Well,
where-
me too. And I think that's where folks really need to look at who they're voting for and who made those votes. I know commissioners, they're very reactive. And you're a commissioner too. And I'm not saying this about you, but in general,
How
they're
dare you?
exactly. I know you, Chris.
How dare you?
You're often the dissenting vote. But they're very reactive to whoever is just standing in front of them.
That's true.
And there's a lot more people than who can make it to those commission meetings or who may write a letter. People get busy. They're so busy with their lives. They don't pay attention until it's too late.
Well, they elect you to be there and
That's
be in their
right.
stead.
They do. And so it's so important to really follow up on their votes. Are they voting the way you anticipated them to? And, this is just something for me with elections and pet peeves.
Yeah.
Don't vote for the popular name. And, the other thing that's out there is we have the firefighters pack that will get behind.
Look at that, Casey. Right?
Wow, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So that's Port St. Lucie. And then
There's
that's where
Martin
Newfield's going to be.
Yeah.
Can we just be different? Is that okay?
We can, I wish.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. It's crazy.
Do we have to do what we did in that part of Palm City here?
Yeah. No, there was no reason to.
I guess this top right corner is what they're building on.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll get the density for all that swamp on the left.
Right.
Makes me crazy. And then where are they going? Are they going to go north on Citrus?
No.
I don't think so. I guess maybe
Yeah.
to get on Becker, but no, they're going down here. They're going to go down Citrus.
They're going down to Martin Highway is
Go
where
down
they're
Martin
going.
Highway, and they're maybe either going 95 or no, they're coming here.
Yep.
And guess where they're going to go?
That's right.
They're going to go to Costco.
They will go to Costco. You're right.
and when they go to Costco, right, they're gonna land
Yeah.
at that light. That's probably our most. I consider it. I don't know the actual stats, but
Yeah.
I consider it our most dangerous intersection.
Cantor and
with Cantor
Monterey. Yes.
Yeah, so that's gonna go well.
And also Cantor and 1 is a fun one as well. Intersection.
Basically anything on Monterey too. Is
Right.
just,
Right. No, it is. It's getting crazy.
And you know how we're gonna solve this problem, Casey?
How?
Because I'm on
Chris?
the MPO.
Okay.
right?
I'd love to hear this.
This is how we're gonna fix this problem.
Okay.
Is that A1A and Monterey. Where we go? Hold on. Where am I at? I'm losing track here. At A1A and Monterey,
Okay.
we are going to build a tunnel.
A tunnel.
That's how we're going to fix it. Did you know that?
I had no idea. This is the first I've heard. A tunnel.
At the last MPO, it was me, and then I can't think of her name. She's a Sewell's Point commissioner. I felt like we're the only two with any reason. Said, question.
A1A and Monterey.
'Cause they've
That's
been
where the train tracks
This
are,
has
right?
been brewing. We're the two new ones.
Mhm.
Kayla. We're the two newer ones on the MPO. But this has been a plan. They've been planning this, and originally it was going to be.
How's this tunnel going to work? Explain this to me. What's this tunnel going to do?
This is going to make your head explode. But it's just because you're not initiated, okay? You're
Okay.
not in the gang.
I'm
You
still
don't
looking at
understand.
this with critical
yeah,
thinking.
No, with normal thought. But there were various different plans we're looking at, and half of them, 3/4 of them included a bridge. Well, the bridge could be an issue because of the airport, right?
Right.
So they wanted to build a bridge, especially in light of Brightline.
Yeah, we got to make it big enough so that the double stacked freight
But we're
trains
gonna
can go under it.
We're going to fix all this traffic by building a bridge. It's like, hold on. Time out. I hear you guys, but this is Martin County. We don't do this. There's no bridges and tunnels. Like,
No.
what are we doing here, guys? Can we just not bust more holes in the boat?
And I'm not understanding what that's fixing at that intersection to
Right.
put a bridge or a tunnel in there.
So the bridge kind of got scrapped. And then, because we're talking about priorities in the MPO, we list
Okay.
our priorities of what to do. And
Okay.
then, it absolves DOT from responsibility in terms of like, you tell us what you want us to do.
Okay.
And then it'll be your fault.
Okay. Got
We
it.
elected
Yes.
officials.
You guys
yes.
said yes.
So
This
we
is what you
prioritize
said.
it and then they pay for it and build it.
Okay.
Right. That's the MPO
Okay.
in a nutshell.
All right.
So we said we want a bridge or a tunnel here. We can't really do a bridge. So we're going
Right.
to underground a tunnel.
A tunnel. Our first one in Martin County.
Which
and
I'm
not
curious,
sure
what's
what
the
it's
water
gonna
table
do.
like there?
I
don't
know. I asked that anywhere in Florida.
Yeah, but that's going to fix our traffic problems. See, you didn't know. Now you
I had
know.
no idea, and I had no idea that
Yeah.
our traffic problems emanated at that intersection.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating.
And I said, is there any way we can take this off the priority list for now and just,
Right.
because this doesn't, no, Harold, no,
It's
Nope.
going to be a priority.
Troy, no,
Tunnel.
no. Okay.
A tunnel.
You just wish sometimes that all of the people who live here, it was like a stadium
right.
and everybody had to sit there and watch what we say. You know,
Right.
we were on the
There's
field.
so much that happens behind the scenes, right?
You're right. It was like up on a jumbotron. And the things that we're saying, everybody had to come once a month, like in a coliseum,
Yes.
and sit there so that the people that are talking could hear the boo!
Yes.
Boo!
Yeah. Then you know it's reactive.
Okay, maybe no tunnel. Yeah! You know, like
exactly. But nobody's there. The
Facebook
public does
almost
not
kind of
involved.
approximates that, but it's not in real time.
Well,
but
nobody
you
knows
wish.
what's going on at the MPO and the public.
Right.
Honestly, you know, a lot of the committees and things that the elected officials have to go on because you're representing us. We're just
Hopefully.
right. We're just
We're representing, I've
anticipating-
said this before, some constituency, but it may not be
Right.
everyone that votes.
Right. No, that's right.
It may not be. You may have a constituency, but it may not be the constituency.
That's voting for you, and right. There's always somebody has a grand plan and they're pushing it.
So how stoked are you about Brightline?
Oh boy.
I'm just gonna toggle to your camera.
Yeah.
Go. What do you think?
Oh, Chris, everybody knows how stoked I am about
I know.
Brightline. So, you know, when I started Florida Not All Aboard back in 2014, my main argument was don't use taxpayer dollars for this private company. And it still is that mantra today. There's a lot of other issues that come with Brightline. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going to have Susan Maheel on my show. She's Alliance for Safer Trains, I think it's called.
Okay. What's their thing? I don't know
They
what
want
that is.
more fencing and things to make the train safer now that it's here, but they were opposed to the train all along. Susan was a real ally of mine, and then she started the Alliance for Safer Trains, I think in like 2016, 2017, when it was inevitable that it was being supported by our local
Yep.
commissioners. So, you know, here we are, Chris. I look at the support that we had in 2014, 15, 16 from our local commissioners. Everybody was against All Aboard Florida. They were against taxpayer spending. And we had a new commission come in I think it was fully in 2018. And that's when the settlement happened with Brightline from the county. And they said that they would pay for half of the station if it was to be built here in Martin County. Not one commissioner asked, gee, how much does the station cost? We're settling this $4 million lawsuit. How much does the station cost? Nobody asked. At that time, we knew they were $75 million from down south.
Right, exactly.
And it's like,
That's what makes me a little bit crazy.
oh, I'm completely crazy about this. So, yeah, the train's here and people want it, but why are we paying $46 million?
You're not paying $46
Oh,
million.
yeah, we are.
You think that's all you're gonna pay?
Oh, it'll be more.
Right.
It'll end up being more. Now, what
Because that was
happens-
based on what? I'm pulling it up now, but the Boca station, right?
I think it was the Boca. There's a lot of different stations down there. The Miami one was over 100 million, but I think
Treasure
Boca
Coast Regional Planning estimated
estimated.
45 million based on the Boca. But
Okay.
there's no RFP that's out. There's nobody that said.
Chris, everybody's like, we're going to get grants.
call
We
it
don't
an-
even have them yet.
You call it an at-risk proposal. An at-risk proposal says, your person who provides the proposal says that's the cap,
Mm-hmm.
right? And anything that's more than that, I'm going to eat as the person built. There's not an at-risk proposal that says 45 million. There's not even a proposal at all.
We just agreed to do it.
That's why I said when we were voting on this is a blank check. You guys can't do this.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be some ad valorem benefit here, but I don't even have like a break-even point to consider. I have no data of what has this even done from an ad valorem standpoint in Boca or West Palm or any of these other places. Like, sure, it's going to bring in more TIF, but show me where the break-even point is if this doesn't make sense anymore. And then maybe we scale back the size of station, or maybe we're good. Maybe it's no big deal. Like, take out a note, we'll get it back in this time frame. But I can't even make that kind of financial decision. It's more of just, are you on the team or not? Are you in or
That's
you out?
right. That's right.
Like, hold on, no.
Vote for it or not.
Right. Anything that comes in front of us, we got to look at critically. It's not just.
Chris was the no vote, folks, by the way. Everybody else was yes. And the other thing, this company, I want to make this super, super clear because people still don't know this today. Brightline is owned by Fortress, which is part a wealth fund management company in Mubadala. It's in the United Arab Emirates. This is one of their investments, and guess who gets to prop up their investment with their money? The United States taxpayer. Florida East Coast Railway is owned by Grupo Mexico. It is a Mexican company that owns the freight and the land. And all the upgrades to the tracks, of course, will now belong to Grupo Mexico.
You're going to get us killed.
Sorry, Chris. I
got 4 kids, Casey.
Back in 2014, when I went up against Fortress, people said, "Aren't you afraid? Aren't you scared?" Because this was a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. But I'm still here,
Saudi
I still keep talking.
Saudi doesn't play.
This
Mexico
is Chris's
doesn't play. Listen.
So, it drives me crazy, though, Chris, because this was the one thing. I don't think American taxpayers should be supporting a private company, first of all, but then secondly, they're foreign owned. Why are we asking taxpayers to build any of their infrastructure, improve any of their infrastructure? And this is only one component. This is one station. We've put in hundreds of millions of dollars already. When I first opposed the train, they had applied for it. It was a $2 billion RIF loan, 100% taxpayer backed. And I was like, no way. There's no profitable passenger train systems. The taxpayers are going to be left holding the bag. Yeah. We did get that loan denied. But what did they do? They found other honeypots, and, the politicians just seem to, they're very good at smooching them, and they were able to get money federally, state, and local municipalities. So, and, my own beloved Martin County and Stewart fought so hard against this. And, the one thing that also bothers me a lot is the county and the city has disregarded what it has meant to the marine interest and folks that are west of the bridge. So Scott Watson will be on my show tomorrow. He's going to call in and talk about, even with the new bridge, the impacts it's still going to have for the marine industry over there. It's not a great thing for them. And these are businesses that supply jobs. They employ our people that live here and work here. And yet we're supporting this foreign entity with our tax dollars. And grants, folks, there are tax dollars. I don't care if they're coming from the federal government or the state government. Grants are tax dollars. And I've said it before, we're $34 trillion in debt and counting our country. Everybody's like, oh my God, we're going to leave all this debt to our kids. But yet everybody's like, oh, it's grant money. If we don't use it, somebody else will. So we got to take it.
It's a strange thing that, grant money gets this association with like gift cards or something.
Right. It's free money. It's
but
not.
That is your money. Grant money is you just paid it federally.
It is. That's exactly right. You just gave it to a different entity. It's still your money.
And if there's that much grant money flying, there's layers to grant money, right? On first glance, it's like, oh, that's nice. We don't have to pay for that complete street.
Right.
Or
there's good uses for it.
Yeah. I like the idea that we get a new bridge because that's a 100-year-old bridge, right?
I don't like that we're paying for it, though. I'll tell you that again. This is upgrading
But one way or
the
another, you have
infrastructure.
to pay for it.
The company should. My goodness, this is one of the
Brightline
10
should have to
wealthiest
pay for
hedge
it.
funds in the world. They have the money. Now, this particular division it's under their umbrella. I don't care. But this particular division isn't making money, but their other ones are. So why should we as taxpayers be the one to foot the bill? But we have to. They're making us miserable, and they're going to get a new bridge out of it.
And then secondarily with grant money is if you build things, infrastructure with grant money that you can't afford to maintain, I have a concern with that too. You should try to be sustainable with what your tax base can
Really, Chris?
sustain.
You really care about being able to maintain things and have the money to do that?
This is always the example I use is I like, everybody has like their fantasy purchase, right?
Right.
Sailboat.
Right.
Right. I love.
Not me, but yes.
I love.
I like power motors.
I'm a blowboat guy.
Okay.
So like a 26 to 30 foot classic line, day
Right.
sail. That's like my little, if I was a
Your dream
gazillionaire,
boat.
right?
Okay.
So, but let's say that some uber wealthy person gives me that boat. Even if they gave me that boat, I can't afford to store it.
Right.
I can't afford marina space for it. I can't afford a guy to do the teak.
Right.
I don't have time to do teak. The diesel engine when it breaks. So in a way, my fantasy dream, I can't afford the O&M on it.
Right.
It's a curse.
Right.
As nice as you're trying to be by giving me that boat, because it's my dream.
Can't afford to keep
I
it.
can't afford to maintain
Yeah.
it. So all it's going to do is cause me bigger problems. That's, in a way, how I view some of this with grant money is even if there are no strings attached, which a lot, I'm always digging like what's in the grant
Right.
proposal? What do we have to do? Real tinfoil
Most
hat.
of them have strings attached.
But even if there's none,
right.
Can we afford the infrastructure maintenance that we're going to be on the hook for now long term without taxes having to go up to maintain that complete street sidewalk thing and how much more staff with
I would guess you're one of the few commissioners that is asking those questions. Unfortunately.
It's not just free money.
It's not free money. And there's times where a grant, as you said, streets, sidewalks, our water issues. I'll support that every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these grants, and this one in particular, has my goat going, as they say from the Midwest where I'm from. This is a foreign-owned private company. Why are we propping up their bottom line with
what do you
our
think
tax
is the
dollars?
long term? How does this play out? From somebody who's been
I think
involved in this for a long time.
I think taxpayers are going to end up subsidizing or owning Brightline.
I think so too.
And the freight, they got all of their infrastructure upgraded free of charge. That company is making out like a bandit. I always question how that sale went down, and that is when Fortress sold FECR, Florida East Coast Railway, to Grupo Mexico. It was very quiet. It was like overnight, all of a sudden, Grupo Mexico just purchased Florida East Coast Railway. And by the way, they're going to give Brightline in perpetuity the right to use the tracks. And it's like, that doesn't make a lot of sense for a company if they're truly separate to give this other company that causes all these accidents, has these issues, it shuts the tracks down every time they have an accident. This affects the freight business. So there's something more in that business deal than we'll ever see because it's redacted and it's not public information. But at the end of the day, all these upgrades incredibly benefit the freight division. So I think that taxpayers are going to end up, there's too much taxpayer money in Brightline already with all the stations and all the infrastructure improvements that we've done. Quiet zones, folks, we all want them. You know why Brightline wants them? Because the municipality, has to ask for them and we have to pay for them. And it does a lot of the safety upgrades Brightline should be doing anyway, but now we're going to pay for it because, hey, you guys are the ones that wanted the quiet zone. We don't need it. It's just another way to get American taxpayers to fund this project, and we're going to have so much money in it, we're going to have to take it over, and that's what I see in the future.
Because otherwise, if I'm snugly putting on my tinfoil hat, why if you're a Mexican, if you're Mexico or a wealth management group that's international, why do you want to own the rail system, some part of the rail system in the U.S.? Why do you want to own how we transport Americans? It's not a profit producing asset. I mean, besides
the freight could be. In Grupo
freight.
Mexico, they do have a freight division in Mexico. So that one makes sense why they would have that. The freight division, they typically are the profit centers for trains.
But rail isn't profitable. Like
the passenger is
right.
not. No, passenger is not at all.
So
That one doesn't make any sense.
What's the point? Why would you? There has to be some other benefit other than money
Well,
to that.
so Fortress bought Florida East Coast Railway back in 2007, and it was their grand plan to start Brightline up in 2012. This was all starting. In 2014, when I came online with Florida Not All Aboard, they thought it was all done except for deciding the train horns. I remember there was a joke between Brightline and one of our local, not officials, but our somebody that I think that was in the MPO. It was a joke. Well, hopefully nobody has too many complaints about the train horns. They thought that was their last issue. They were going to be up and running by the end of 2014. Why? They were getting that $2 billion RIF loan, and they were going to upgrade the tracks for the freight. I mean, I believe from the start that's what this was about, was getting taxpayer money, because these lines 100 years old. They need to upgrade it. It's very expensive. So they're playing all along. And where was the government money? It's not for freight companies. There's not a ton of money out there for them. But the government had, it was during the Obama administration, they wanted to increase, walkability and passenger rail, that type of thing, and to get cars off the road. So there was money out there for that. And I think that they saw those money pots, and that was their intention. And starting up Florida Not All Aboard, there was a lot more opposition. It cost them a lot of money. They didn't start in 2014, did they? They finally started, I think, in 2018 from West Palm to Miami. And they haven't made money yet. They're still losing money hand over fist. But they are getting these tracks upgraded. And I think that was the plan all along.
That makes sense. It's interesting, right? Because their projections came out and they're down.
Yes, everything is.
Right. It seemed like... Okay, so... this is, again, a little tinfoil hat, but why pump up your numbers for your estimates?
So they did that with the environmental impact statement back in 15. Why?
Because of the bonding to get more money.
Yeah, it was all to build confidence.
Yeah.
Because back in 15, when they first started putting out these rosy numbers, we knew they were way over projected. But they hadn't started yet, so nobody was there to say these are the numbers and they're not coming to fruition. They didn't have a track record. So when they started out, they could say, "Oh, we're going to take, we're going to have 6 million people riding," and
sure.
So little by little, they're letting out the
reality of it.
The reality and the true figures that this isn't quite what we thought. Yep, exactly. It is. It truly is. You'll see how they'll release some of their statements. It's we doubled by 50%. Well, 50%, is that 1 to 2 or 100 to 200 or 100 to 150? Or is it 100,000 to 200,000? What are your? They don't give us the numbers. They go by percentages, which is a great way to.
So let me Casey Ingram, you, okay. The other side would say, with all of the traffic, right, with all of the human beings moving to Florida, that if their numbers are 100,000 passengers a month, that's whatever it is, that's 100,000 less cars that were on I-95. Casey, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I sure don't see it, but I'm on 95 every day.
Aren't they saving us from traffic?
Yeah, that's what they claim. And no, I mean, you're still using your cars to get to the train station, and there's not that many people riding the train. I do think that when they give their specials and make it affordable, which is hugely losing money for them, more people will ride. But I am not the only one. Every once in a while, they have the trains wrapped so you can't see in, but if the sunlight is just right or what have you, at night, there's nobody on there, or just a handful. I can't believe they're running these between Orlando and Miami with just that few handful of people.
I worry and agree with you that we might end up having to buy it.
I think we will. I truly do.
Because at what point, once all the infrastructure is built out and if it's I don't want to be negative against it if it's successful, great. But if it's not, right, and we end up having to buy it because it's hemorrhaging money, still, like with all the infrastructure and all the stations, and it's still not producing, how long do you hold on to that before it's a bag, it's a dog, and you got to get out of it?
Well,
and the government's so deeply invested into it, they're not just going to let that.
We have too much taxpayer money in it already, in my opinion. But we're already supporting Tri-Rail, Sunrail, Amtrak. It's not like, I'm not against trains in particular. This one, I just don't believe had any business having high-speed rail going through and bifurcating all these small communities. And people are dying. You know, people say they're stupid. No, the safety is not put up. I mean, you go to Europe, there's trains all over, but they have bridges, they have tunnels. They're not, all these at grade intersections, that's not normal. It's not for high-speed train. They should be elevated or below. Yeah. You know, it's just human nature. You either beat the train. It's unfortunate. It happens. Going through Confusion Corners, traffic's going, and all of a sudden somebody stops. You can't even see. It might be 15 cars up.
We've got to figure something out with Confusion Corner.
Oh, the whole thing is kind of crazy that way.
It went from charming downtown Stewart to now with Brightline. It's a death trap.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to die.
It is.
If it doesn't get reconfigured.
It's a project. I'm not against trains. I just was against the way this train was being funded. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be, I mean, from the start, this company they lied, they were nasty. They would come right out and say, it's our land and we'll do what we want. You know, and they have acted that way all along. They've gotten a little better here in recent years, but at first it was, they didn't care what we said. We're bringing 32 trains. You know, that was the first press release they put out. There's going to be 32 trains coming. There's not going to be any stops on the Treasure Coast. And, you know, it's our land. We'll do what we want with it. And Rusty Roberts sat in that commission meeting that you sit in. And very angry crowd was there that night. They were talking about the train, and the freight train went by outside and blew its horn, and he just laughed at everybody and said, that's the sound of money. You know, there was no working with people. It was just their public relations really was terrible at the time. So it's just one of those things. Trains might be fantastic. The design of this one is horrendous. And in the beginning, they said they wouldn't use taxpayer money. It's going to be all privately funded. They kept saying that over and over and over again. It's like, no, you applied for a $2 billion taxpayer-backed loan. That's a lie. And, you know, fast forward a decade, and there's a lot of public money and taxpayer money that's put into this project.
The devil's advocate side of that would be, right, you have, aren't airlines funded?
Oh, they'll talk about toll roads and things like that. So, again, the airline didn't come out and say, we're privately funded, we're not going to use taxpayer dollars. Mm-hmm. This company said that.
Right.
This, by the way, is a for-profit company. Again, that's foreign-owned. And we already, as taxpayers, if you want to subsidize trains, we have Amtrak, we have Tri-Rail, we have Sunrail that we're already subsidizing. So why do we need to subsidize a fourth? Because a private company came out and said, oh, we're gonna build a train that's
people from
bigger and better
that work in Miami can live in Martin County.
That's right. I know. And now we can hop on the train and go shop south of here.
Yeah, and Fort Pierce is just way too far to drive to the station.
Exactly, I know.
Right?
It's the other side of the world.
Now you can walk there.
I know. I was surprised they didn't pick Fort Pierce, so that was a good location for it, I thought. If you're going to have a train station, and Fort Pierce really, really wanted it, but...
Yeah, they did.
For whatever reason, beyond me, I don't know.
A lot of people were saying, oh, it's going to be at the fairgrounds or it's going to be in Fort Pierce. But it never really made sense to me on a couple levels is the county only wants to pay for half the station. So if you put it in the city and the city's open to paying for the garage or maybe the station or now we got another party we can get.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. $30 million.
We're having to pay. We'll have to pay for less of it. Like just on money,
right?
You got a better shot of getting, having less exposure, financially.
I have
to say,
if
it's in the city,
right?
And Fort Pierce, not to dog Fort Pierce at all, but Stewart is just this charming little destination. And if you're trying to increase ridership, you should want to have an attraction.
Right.
The fairgrounds isn't. I mean, unless they're getting off Brightline to go to Home Depot.
The fairgrounds was a no because it's county owned. You notice city
Yep.
was granted this property, but
Yep.
and they need to, if they sell that property, it had to go out for an RFQ, and Brightline would not do an RFQ.
Right.
So that put the fairgrounds out of the equation. Where this property here in Stewart now, you guys have it, and I have to hand it to the county. It was a great way to offhand a lot of the cost of it was to the city, but I feel bad for the city. I hope I hate the grants. I hate how it's happening, but if the grants don't happen, what are we going to do?
The way it's working out is, it went from the county, it being the county's thing, to now the county saying, hey, we'll give you 15 mil.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's no formal deal yet, so I'm winging this. But just in...
That's kind of what the deal was.
How it's brewing is, it feels like, is here's 15 million, you guys figure it out.
You guys build the parking garage.
But now what's the station actually going to cost?
I know it.
Because that 60 mil for the Boca station, and I'm winging this.
Yeah, but that was back in
5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah. Cost of materials have went up tremendously since then. So, and by the time this gets built, by the time the money comes through,
so you get 15 mil out of the county.
I know. It's City of Stewart's really on the line here.
So you're gonna put everybody on a note, and then pray for grant money.
Mm-hmm. No, it didn't seem like a good plan. And exactly, it's like I had hoped the grants would have been lined up first, which I'm not supportive of that at all. But at this juncture, that's our only avenue that's going to save taxpayers here locally. But they don't even have that on the line. It's just, staff saying, don't worry, we got it. So
right, and we don't have anything in for this grant cycle. So it's not going to be until the next grant cycle that we could even figure that out.
Which is interesting because Brightline's saying they want to have the station open by 26 now.
You could say that. You can also say that no taxpayer dollars will be...
Yeah, they've said a lot of stuff. You're absolutely right about that.
It sounds good.
I know. It sounds
There
good.
must be a bond cycle that's happening.
We're not using... Yeah, exactly. Oh, I think that there is one coming. Every time you can see that they're putting out headlines that say ridership's increasing. It's like, they're trying to confidence build again.
That was something I found interesting when we were talking about the locations, because I thought, and I actually would have been more supportive of it, a station sort of across from Mast's office, where Luna is really.
Right.
Mast's office was, I guess the grade for the bridge has to change. That didn't make sense. But in front of Luna's, there wasn't enough room because of cars.
Okay.
And it was like, well, there's enough room for the number of cars now.
Right.
But
why not?
They needed room for another car or two. But it's like, do you really?
Yeah.
Because I don't see that many humans on it.
Well, you saw the latest article. They're adding more cars on because it's so popular.
I don't know.
To each of their trades.
Right.
So I don't know how many, but empty's empty. So
yeah,
it's crazy. It's just one of these examples of I just wish as a country and our elected officials we could just step back and understand why we're $34 trillion in debt. This is just one little tiny project. You think about everything that's happening all over the country, and we're giving so much money away around the world. I get that. There's a lot of different things, but at what point are we going to say we need to protect America first, and we got to stop just handing out money like it's growing on trees, and it's just out of control. It's out of control, and it's local all the way up to a federal level. And
not to get too much into federal issues or like larger. But if you wanted to make a case for Ukraine, right, and gazillions of dollars going to Ukraine, we're not sending pallets of cash. Just in comparison, right?
Right.
If you're going to be pumping money into something, that money goes. If you look at the way it's apportioned, it doesn't go over in like a truck with money.
No, they're sending equipment and
right. So we're spending money on
our infrastructure
to
rebuild.
Go to Raytheon and Boeing and whoever makes what weapons.
So you're investing in the companies in America.
And the American war machine, at least, I guess. And that pumps up our economy.
There's a benefit there. You're looking
at
the bright side of it. No, I hear you. But there's a benefit there at least.
But like, you're investing in a foreign company here.
And one of the 10 wealthiest wealth funds in the world.
Like, is there even that much demand for the thing that you're...
Clearly not.
I mean, you're just anticipating that people are not going to be driving, or that there'll just be so much traffic that they can't and will need the train, or... It reminds me of, we had the this was like a year and a half ago. I was fresh on there, on the board, and the charging stations for FPL came up. And I'm the only one that's saying, like, yeah, I don't think this is as big of a fad.
Yeah.
I think it's fad. I don't think we really need that much infrastructure for charging stations. There's Tesla, there's Wawa, like.
Right.
I think we're okay, and I don't think we need to be giving away basically parking spaces downtown, deep downtown to FPL when we get nothing out of it anyway. They're not paying us to rent the spot. Like even the Seacoast ATMs, they rent that little footprint.
I didn't know that. Okay.
For whatever the fee is. I don't think it's a lot, but at least something. Taxpayers that are renting their property to Seacoast.
Right.
FPL, there's no incentive at all. All it was, and I had to argue this point, was with the guy, because he didn't want to even give this up, is after 10 years, the Chargers will be ours, we'll own the Chargers.
And what's that do for us?
And only because they do that with their residential program. I was like, okay, maybe.
Okay.
At least we get something. I don't know. But I didn't want that either. You know?
Right. I don't want them in 10 years either. So. But
it's like that. Like why invest into infrastructure? And now a year and a half later, all of a sudden the narrative's changing, right? Is maybe, EVs are not.
I heard their car dealerships don't even want to take them in on trade now.
And at the time, I won't put anybody on blast, but other commissioners are like, by 2025 or 2026, 80%, there's some huge number of cars will be EV. I was like, I don't think so, man. People just do what they do. It's not
right.
Unless you don't allow them to drive gas cars, they don't just
switch over. And
people don't have 30, 40 grand to just drop on an EV if their car still runs,
Right. That's right.
And it's that kind of a thing. Why terraform society? Why not just, and this is my general contention with government, and I've said this before, is why not run it more private sector?
I know.
What is the market demand? And then if you're going to do something, make it more what your market demands. Don't have the hubris to presume
that's right.
That
what we need
are going to override and overlay how you think society should function.
It would be amazing. And you look at a lot of even the commission seats of folks that are elected. Do they understand how business is ran? Some do. You do. You got your own business.
Right.
Some don't. And, they're just in a position, I think, as elected officials that, again, they're taking staff recommendation, and sometimes it seems popular at the time. It's almost a knee-jerk reaction of...
Here's my beef with that, though, is you hire staff. Like well, not staff, but your county administrator, your city manager. You hire those people. That's who you put in that role. So if you are... Ultimately, whoever's in those 5 seats, that's who's responsible, because you've even set the tone of what staff will recommend.
Right. Commissions change over.
Yeah.
It's just, and again, it's 5 people. It's tough. And I commend all of you as commissioners, because that's really tough. You're one voice up there and you're a minority voice. So you have to get at least 2 others to be a majority voice. And it's just a tough way to operate. It's different from private business. It just is.
It's the first time in my life I've ever had to argue with other people to have the direction of a thing go. Usually in my little world, I'm in charge.
You make the decision and
you
run with it.
And I can observe and I can try to anticipate, and
if it succeeds, it's on you. If it fails, it's on you.
Put a fleece out and see, nope, that's not going to work. Let's pivot. And then, yes, let's go all in on that. That's the way.
Right.
And I can't do that. I have to try to.
You can't.
Convince for other people of, what seems to be the way and what's happening in the temperature. And
right.
And it just moves so slow, too. It's such a slow-moving organism.
It is. I mean, that's just government in general. It's just the nature of government. It's what we have to deal with. I mean, it's part of the reason why we're dealing with discharges yet, right? I mean, it's 100 years that they built that canal.
You're going to get me fired up today.
Well, it's another frustrating thing. I mean, there's projects that have been in the pipeline since the 60s that aren't even online yet. So
in some ways, you're closer than you've ever been, right? You have even, 2018, 2016, all of those SEP projects were being talked about. I remember that letter from Marco Rubio. I got really into it then. And it just seems so far away and impossible. And now they're breaking ground on projects. You got C44 reservoir. You got stuff that's happening. That's still getting dialed in.
Yeah, it
There's
is.
still stuff going on. We're
We're
figuring it out.
Yeah.
But they're breaking ground on the EAA reservoir, STA. Stuff's happening. So in some ways it feels really close. You got LOSUM right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? LOSUM, if you could just adopt LOSUM,
Right.
except for your El Nino years like this year, you should be able to avoid discharges because the lake will be higher.
Right.
You're going to have it sitting on the lake to protect the estuaries. But it also seems like
So far away
because you're looking at 3,500
if this year
CFS dumping.
This year turns out like it seems like it's going to be a frightening, eye-opening year,
Yeah.
especially for folks that have not been here and experienced it before.
Right. I've got 6 to 15 feet of legacy muck where there should be sand bottom in that river, and 10 to 15 years from the EAA reservoir being completed to where they would want to come dredge it.
Oh, all the muck that's in there and all the nutrients that's in that muck it's just.
So that's
we're
where it
such a long way from healing everything.
Really far away.
It is.
You know,
the seagrasses. I mean, that's something that frightens me.
The oysters.
Right.
The oysters make me crazy because whatever your metrics are for the number of cubic feet a second you can discharge, before you kill the oysters, because that's your filter for the river.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you can keep them from dying off, that should be like where you backtrack your cubic feet per second and how much you have to pull, like how far early you have to start pulsing to be able to get the water off. So but protecting the oysters.
But you know what we do? We discharge, all the oysters die, and then we replant them.
Because ag needs its performance.
I have a story to share with you about oysters. So this was kind of funny. So back in 2013, a bunch of us went to Washington, D.C. I went on behalf of the Guardians at the time with my daughter. She was 4. And she took a little purse up there. They were full of oyster shells, and she would hand them out. And one of the people we handed them out to, we walked out in the back hall, was Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi walked up and...
Did she tell you what stocks to buy, at least, when you were talking to her? Because she crushes on her portfolio.
Oh, she's the queen of stock trading. Queen of stock trading. Yeah. My daughter handed her the oyster shell, and she's like, "Oh, isn't this cute?" And my daughter says, "It's dead." It was the perfect response. It's dead. You know, and... I don't know if she has it on her desk anymore, but it was probably like 8 years later. I saw one of her aides. She's like, that oyster shell is still on her desk. She remembers. But that was the point of this. These discharges, they kill not only oysters, they kill our whole estuary. I mean, I remember birds not flying around and seeing no fish. And it's just so drastic when these discharges happen and they change that water. And it's what folks need to realize, too, is it's not just pollutants in the water, phosphorus, nitrogen, and that. It's the fresh water coming into our saltwater estuary that kills it too. You can have the cleanest water in the world coming in, and it's still gonna destroy our estuary because it's so much fresh water. So,
and in terms of blue-green algae,
I know
when that hits, because that's a freshwater organism, hits salt, it goes into apoptosis. So it rapid cell deaths, and as it dies, it releases
toxins.
Bad.
Dogs
into
died,
the air.
People were sick. Mm-hmm.
And between your ag fertilizers, which cause cells to grow, right? If I give you a lot of salt, you're going to expand.
Right.
You're going to swell. That's how ag works with salts.
Okay.
And with glyphosate, which causes rapid cell reproduction. Okay. Again, I got really into this in like 2016, 2018. I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on.
Right.
So glyphosate will cause splitting and reproduction of cells. So between larger cells and more of them, you get blooms.
Okay.
That's and so now you've got that pouring into an estuary, and you have blooms of blue-green algae going into apoptosis instead of smaller amounts.
Right.
And now you've got, when I am during one of those 2016, 2018 seasons, patients are coming in with sinus, fatigue, like malaise, brain fog, achy joints, their body hurts. They're being like poisoned. It's wild. but there's neurologic side effects because as that organism is dying, it's trying to like kill off, or it's fighting.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a bee stinging you. It's dying and it's trying to kill you.
On its way out.
On its way out, and it's the city of Stewart's a peninsula surrounded by water. You're in it.
We are in it, and we're one of the few hot spots in the country, and they all happen to be around blue-green algae areas. We're the only one in Florida where we have a very high rate of non-alcoholic liver disease.
Whoa.
And it's frightening. It's frightening. Why do we have that here?
That's your filter.
Yeah. I had a friend, I had posted that a little while ago, and she's like, oh my gosh, she said, I don't drink that much, and my doctor said I have problems with my liver, but he didn't think it was alcohol related. He said, but if you have problems with your liver, you better stop drinking. And now she's like, I didn't realize that she lives on the water.
What is that geographic area? You said Martin County or Stewart?
Martin County, yeah. If you look up non-alcoholic liver hot spots in the United States, you'll see a graph. It was out of Ohio State University, and we're going to be the only place in Florida that has that.
What?
It's right around this estuary.
See?
It's frightening. It's frightening as we just live here and breathe.
And I brought this up with Mark Perry. I haven't heard anybody else mention it, but in light of PFOA, PFOS, the only reason that is even a thing is because the DEP just started testing for it.
Okay.
And guess what they found?
A lot.
Right? So, and that's one chemical of the last 50 years, these chemical companies using all of these new forever chemicals that serve various function, like PFOA, PFOS is
that paints or something.
It's even on, and this is comical, when we outlawed the plastic straws, right? Mm-hmm. It's on the plant-based straw that keeps the cardboard from just being saturated, right? Like water on paper absorbs and it should disintegrate instantly. Well, you spray it with PFOS and it creates a film to where it's almost like plastic that you can pull water through it until it finally seeps through enough and breaks down that. So it's on everything.
So we traded one bad thing for another bad thing.
It was on the fire foam. It was on the pizza boxes. It's on the straws. It's any of these products that are like that. And 3M's going to stop making it. I shouldn't say too much about 3M because we have a settlement agreement.
Right.
I don't want to mess it up.
I know the PFAS.
They're going to stop making it like next year.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's been in decades of stuff.
It's already out there.
That's one chemical. One
countless
chemical in an industrial revolution of chemicals in the last 50 years that the DEP has decided to start testing for whatever reason it hit critical mass. And they said, we need to make sure that we are looking at this. What happens when there's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing? And what goes into the lake? The lake is effectively the stormwater reservoir for Orlando down.
It is.
That whole Kissimmee Valley, all your ag, all of
it all pours into there.
Pharmaceutical drugs coming out of people, what gets flushed into, everything's coming down into that reservoir, and then it's going east-west. What else is in that water? It's not just nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, glyphosate. What's in the water?
It's a good question, Chris. It really is.
What does that do when there's legacy, repeated years of you keep getting concentration of it because you're flushing it out of the lake? Well,
I think for one thing, it's killing our seagrasses, right? Whatever's in there, glyphosate.
I told you were going to get me hot.
I know. I'm sorry about that. But did you see Orca? They did studies, I think it was 2 years ago now, and it had all the hot spots in the St. Lucie River of a lot of nutrients. It was very interesting.
Where was it?
Well, it's throughout the St. Lucie River, but you'll see there's pockets of it, and then it said what it was. Like some of it might be, the bottom paint on boats. It's been done for years, right? So
it's awful too. It's so bad.
Yeah, there's things in there that of course it gets in the water. So
if somebody has to, right? Because again, I love sailboats, so I know a little bit. There's other products you can use that are actually more
environmentally friendly,
right? Like you can use metal paints, like copper, instead. But if somebody has to have a hazmat suit on,
right,
to apply a product onto a boat bottom, it's probably a good sign you don't want to put it into
in the water,
an environmentally sensitive place.
Right. It's just common sense, right?
Yeah, you think. I don't know.
Well, copper's probably too expensive. It all comes down to money, right?
It is, and it doesn't work quite as good. So you have to more frequently apply it and probably scrape it.
We're doing it to ourselves.
It's true.
We just have to recognize it. And, I think we do recognize it. We just don't know how to help ourselves right now. And, so many of the issues we're having today, it's been decades, almost a century in the making. So
the problem is you get more people.
Yeah.
It's one thing, I said this before too, when there's a handful of people on the peninsula, it's rural, it's, 1860. You may be using poisonous things, lead paints and things but there's so few people, the environment kind of is able to absorb it and mediate it. But when you hit such a high population density, you really have to be aware of what you're doing, because the rapid nature of how quickly things can escalate, like a PFAS, and all of a sudden you got a huge problem.
Right.
And you've got to spend, how much those filters are?
No.
So part of our settlement agreement, the function of it with 3M is to help pay for the resin filters to get it out of the water, because it's still percolating down through the ground into the aquifer.
Oh, wow.
So the only way to get it out, besides massive, where do you even put all that earth?
Right.
Is you have to let it percolate down and then pull it through these filters to trap it, and then you incinerate them.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
All right.
Each one of these filters to replace and destroy, and this was in our agenda, I'm not winging this, is $800,000.
Holy cow.
And we need 2 of them every, I think, 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
So our settlement agreement is built around, and this is because lawyers can't get a third of resin filters.
Great.
It should be resin filters in perpetuity.
Right.
And I can't say the number because we're still in it's not formally released yet, but our settlement agreement is built around a time frame, so many years of paying for the filters.
Oh, okay. Because it's a big settlement. It's a big number.
It's because it's
$800,000. Wow.
Right.
I had no idea.
So like our last, this was like 2 meetings ago, to replace the filters was 1.6 mil.
Wow.
Little Stewart
Both of
has
them, right.
And at some point, that settlement's going to run out.
Where are these filters at? Like, where are they filtering if there's only 2?
Right. We have wells that are more damaged than others.
Okay.
But you can't just not draw, or it will continue to just, it's an aquifer, right? You've got to pull it through, and you got to pull it through that filter.
Okay.
If you want to get rid of it.
Wow. Okay. It's crazy.
So
expensive.
Yeah, man.
Well, it was a big settlement. I remember that. I don't remember what the number was, but it was shocking. But now I know why.
It's because of those filters.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know.
So that money needs to sit in an interest-bearing account for as long as humanly possible.
Right.
To lengthen the amount of time before taxpayers are now on the hook for those, because today they're 1.6 mil. But if I'm a company, I don't want to give them any ideas.
Right.
And this was a class action with municipalities all over the country. If I'm the company that makes the resin filters, I kind of charge whatever I want.
Right. They're golden.
Right. So today they're 1.6. What happens when in 10 years they're 20%,
they need to get
30%?
competition, get all American way.
Yeah, hopefully. But, at some point the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for those.
Right. Well, hopefully you get all the money at once. I don't know if you will or not.
2 chunks. We got half of it already.
Okay. All right.
So it's sitting, bearing interest
right now.
I
was going to say if you put it in
as long as I can keep other paws off of it.
Exactly.
Because everybody's got their pet projects they want to.
All of a sudden there's money and it's like, no, this is specifically
like
for
affordable
this
housing.
purpose.
That came up with the one over at the garage. One commissioner said, as soon as people find out how much that settlement is, they're going to feel like don't touch the freaking money for the filters.
This is our water. This is to clean our water that we're drinking.
Right. Because now you got to make budget amendments for filter. Stop it.
And you got to look down the road. I mean, you're going to run out of money. Yes. And you're going to run out.
And we can't put tax money in interest-bearing accounts. Right. So you can't take surplus of taxes. You should just decrease your taxes. Right. There's rules.
Right.
But in a settlement,
you can.
I can take that money and I can net 5-6% for taxpayers.
Absolutely.
So that filter money.
So it's going to help build it for future filter money when you run out someday.
Yep.
So. Exactly. I'm with you, Chris.
That's one of the few ways we can profit to help.
Right. And it needs to. Specifically something like this. Again, we talked about it. This is our lifeblood. It is, no matter what. If it's drinking, our way of life. Mm-hmm. So anything we need to do to keep our water clean, we have to do it. I mean, we just do.
Yep.
So how's our hour?
Hour
going?
and 40 minutes. Isn't that nice?
I know.
That's nice.
This is fun, just talking.
I know.
I know. It's like I usually have a half hour, an hour, which really is 25 minutes or 50 minutes. Where this
And you're good at. How long have you been doing the radio show?
Decade.
Yeah, see, that's why you're so good too. You know how to make it. You know where you're at probably innately.
You do. I mean, you have to prepare for every show, and you know so many of the issues though, especially when it comes to commission races, whether it's city or county. I know the issues no matter who's sitting in front of me. You know what's important to the people. So those are fairly interesting and fun to do, but the knowledge is interesting.
I have an idea for you.
Give it to me.
During campaign time is because you can get really good at Facebook ad targeting, and you should have whoever's running, because it's not expensive, $100, $50, boost within a specific radius.
That's a good idea.
So if it's a
truly
city, have like a city custom audience.
Yes.
And it will help get more awareness for your show, but it will really help that person, and it can come out of their campaign account.
Okay.
It would be good for everybody,
because
I know you really care about exposure of the candidate.
Right. That's what it's about.
And so that video will go from whatever gets 1,000 views to like 10,000 views,
that's a
comments,
good idea.
And all of a sudden people know who XYZ candidate is.
I like that. It's a great idea.
Cheap money too.
It is.
Where signs you could spend thousands, mailers are like thousands of dollars,
right.
$50, $100.
And
I think it's a big part of how I beat Merritt.
Yes.
Was he kind of gave up, not to talk bad about Merritt, but
right.
He kind of gave up on Facebook. He just stopped even interacting because I'd make a video and then I would hammer the point and spend $20 and it got to everybody because we're small enough.
Audience. No, that's
you
a
just
great
draw
idea.
little circles, but there's also ways to do it that are smarter that I don't know how to do yet, where you can really make custom audiences, even I think by name.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just did little, circle radiuses all over.
Hit everybody in your voting district or in the city.
Exactly.
So I like
it.
Come,
candidate videos.
We're getting there.
Pitch them on that. Hey, cut me a check for $100 and I'll do a custom audience. And
I will. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Because there's a lot of these candidates that you may be the only exposure they get. They don't know how to use social media. They don't.
It's true. And there's some, if they're not a large enough name, their message never gets out. Yep. So I do like to hear from everybody. So
cool. Well, thank you for taking the time to be here.
My pleasure, Chris. This was fun. I love your studio. This is fantastic.
This is where I do my X-ray analysis.
So is it? Doubles there. You go.
Normally there's a computer right where you are, the keyboard.
So, there's nothing wrong with being efficient. You get a multi-purpose facility here.
Yes. And like you said, I enjoy learning from the conversations.
Right.
So I get smarter with every one of these.
You do?
And I struggle with this talking. I need to talk less.
No, that's okay. It's a lot of fun, and you can focus on so many different areas, and again, it keeps your finger on the pulse of the community in a lot of different areas, and that's what I love about it. So. And
people get to watch them.
People get to watch them, and there's so many people that are really passionate about whatever the topic is, and that's what I enjoy, really being able to talk with those folks because they know way more than I do, and I learn so much from them. So. And
otherwise, there's a huge vacuum where people may never find out about the depth of the issue.
A lot of this stuff. That's right. A lot of this stuff. So.
Well, awesome.
All right.
We'll do it again.
That sounds good, Chris. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let me know if there's something that you want to come talk about.
Definitely. And same to you.
Yeah. I'm always game.
So.
If there's something that's brewing, just let me know.
I will.
If you're like, oh, I wonder what Chris thinks.
Okay.
And I'll come rant and rave on your show.
Will do. This is so much fun. So, all right.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Casey.
You got it.